Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. Come join me, your host Nicole, for some hope-filled conversations about heartfelt entertainment that makes your heart swing. Hey Hearties, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. I'm your host Nicole, joined once again today by my good friend and co-host Theresa to talk about When Calls the Heart, Season 11, Episode 4, Along Came a Spider. It was written by Elizabeth Stewart and directed by Mike Roll. It's Easter in Hope Valley. Elizabeth organizes an egg hunt with help from Nathan. A visitor from Lucas's past gets the town talking. Angela and Cooper seek to mend a relationship. This episode, what are your hot takes for this episode?
I really enjoyed it. I think we're still kind of in the territory of setting things up, I feel like, and I feel like I'm starting to transition into the area of okay, let's start getting things moving a little bit.
Yeah.
And I felt like there were some stories that did start get moving in this episode, which I was happy about.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, we're kind of coming out of the setup phase. I'm ready for the plot heavy episodes. I'm excited for those.
Me too. Those are coming. And I think it's going to start this week.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes. Why don't we get to the episode that we are talking about right now? Episode 4 and Lucas and the investigation. There was only one scene about the investigation this episode.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. And I feel like the information that they told us in the scene, we've already heard before. Namely that Pike is not guilty or his confession does not stand. And we heard that in the last episode. So I was kind of hoping for a little bit more movement with the investigation. But I know there's more coming, so
yes.
I'm not gonna give up at this point because I know there's plenty more coming. So
yeah, it was a good scene though with Bill and Rosemary, and I love when she walks in and she's talking fast like Rosemary does, and Bill says, "Remind me to have a conversation with Ned about privacy."
Oh my gosh. My only question is, what is Ned gonna do about that? I don't know.
Man, we were in sync when we did that.
Yeah, we were.
Totally not planned.
Gosh. Not planned at all. That was totally impromptu.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes I think you and I have the same brain. I'm not even joking.
I know, yeah. There are times where I'm like, Nicole literally just said what I was thinking. Where I'll start to say something and I can see it on your face that you know what I'm about to say.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yep, that is true. That is true.
But anyway, let's get back to Hope Valley and the resort and Jeanette.
Yeah, Jeanette was not what I expected, but at the same time exactly what I expected. It was interesting to see someone from Lucas's past, and I think what some people are maybe mistaking is that Jeanette showing up and talking about this old life that she and Lucas had, I think some people are mistaking that as meaning that Lucas was shady or, not a good person, which I don't think is true. The way I took it was maybe Jeanette is the shady one, and by association, she brought Lucas kind of into that shady circle. Because we don't know what Lucas was doing before he met Jeanette, but we do know when he met Jeanette, he got involved with people like Amos Dixon and whoever she was working for, whoever Amos Dixon was working for, he did get brought into that circle. But it was because of his association with Jeanette.
Yes.
So I know there are some people complaining, oh, this episode made Lucas shady, or some people are saying, like, I knew it all along, he was shady. I don't see it that way. I see Jeanette is shady, and by association, Lucas was brought into a shady circle, which I appreciated.
And we can talk a little bit more about her and her arrival in just a minute, but I will say I'm not a huge fan of the character, Jeanette, but Cecilia did a great job.
She did. And I think that was the point for us not
Yeah,
to like
you're
her,
not supposed to like
for
her. Yeah,
sure.
which is
Yeah.
okay. It's understandable.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
She was giving me like major Great Gatsby type vibes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's always like that, like, you're kind of in a game, and there's like that
Yeah.
sinister, like,
Yeah.
spidery feel, if you will.
Yeah.
But I liked the energy that she brought because it was
Yeah.
very 1920s and
Mm-hmm.
very much of that time. And it kind of goes along with Lucas, because Lucas is a very, he's a man of the world.
Mm-hmm.
He's a city boy, and she's kind of a worldly character. You
Mm-hmm.
could tell, and
Yeah.
perhaps in the past, maybe Lucas would have been attracted to her for those
Yeah.
reasons. But Lucas has lived in Hope
Mm-hmm.
Valley for a long time, and he's changed since then. So you see really how much Lucas has changed and the stark contrast
Mm-hmm.
between him and her, which I think those lines were a little bit more blurred in season
Mm-hmm.
6. So yeah, it's an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't like Jeanette, and understandably so. I appreciated the contrast that she brought
Yeah, I did too.
to
Yeah.
Lucas, for sure.
Lucas's Easter address at the Queen of Hearts. What did you think about that?
I think that well, I know this is gonna sound weird, but I didn't need this episode to be like Easter themed, hearsay. Like, I didn't need the Easter element. I kind of would have preferred if it was just like about the story rather than, oh, it's Easter and we're going to have all these fun
Mhm.
Easter
I see
things.
what
Like,
you're
I
saying.
would have preferred more attention on the story, I think, and less
Hmm.
on the Easter element. But yeah, other than that, I think it's always interesting to hear Lucas give a speech.
Yeah. I don't think it was his best speech necessarily,
Mhm.
but I did enjoy some of the things he said. And before he started his speech, I thought it was hilarious when Elizabeth and Rosemary walk in and, as they're approaching Nathan and Bill, Bill is like, "So, do you think there'll be a Thanksgiving speech too?" And Nathan says, "Yeah, and a Christmas one. Lee, don't forget New Year's."
Yeah. I think, yeah, it almost seemed like all of them were kind of like, okay, Easter speech, or probably gonna have a
Yes.
speech for every holiday. Yeah.
Yes. And of course, this is
Yeah.
not related to Lucas, but the exchanges between Nathan and Elizabeth, like when Lucas said
Hmm.
new beginnings, Elizabeth looked right at
Yeah.
Nathan.
And she was looking for a long time. She was like waiting for him to turn around. And then when he didn't, she's like, okay, whatever. And the
And then
minute
he,
she turns around, that's when he looks. So yeah, she was looking for him to look over after that new
yes.
beginning moment, for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's nice that Lucas is starting the egg hunt, or he
Hmm.
proclaims the first governor's Easter egg hunt, which is fun. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, this scene, Lucas, Bill, Lee, Rosemary, and Mike at the Queen of Hearts talking about meeting with the mayor of Benson Hills, who is Mike's sister. Maisy is her name. And question, Bill is the acting mayor, but Mike is still officially the mayor?
I was
Um,
very
what?
confused. I was just kind of like, wait a minute. Okay. So I knew Bill was acting mayor because Mike stepped down.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Bill hasn't been doing anything as mayor.
Mm-mm.
And I'm kind of like, at this point, Lee is basically the one who's mayor because he's running literally every business in town, and he's helping Lucas with the resort project.
Mm-hmm.
So I just assumed in my head that Lee was kind of the unofficial mayor.
Yeah.
But then you throw Hickam in the mix, and
I'm
Hickam is
like,
kind of
what?
acting mayor. I'm like, okay, hold on. Who is actually mayor? What is happening?
Yeah, that kind of confused me, but maybe
Yeah.
we'll figure it out soon or find out soon.
Yeah. I don't know.
It could be a lead into Lee becoming mayor, maybe.
I definitely think that is going to be something that he eventually does pursue.
Yeah.
And especially since we know he's running all the businesses, he's so involved in the resort project. I think eventually he is going to become the one that
Yes.
becomes mayor.
Me too.
If Hickham's sister is mayor, then why did we never hear about that when Hickam was mayor? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we should have heard that,
A
but yeah.
question that is yet to be answered.
Could be. It could be for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeanette's arrival, and I just have to say, Mike trying to pronounce her last name was hilarious. And then, of course, the
It was.
reactions from him, Bill, and Lee.
Yeah. I mean, I will say they do live in Canada. So we as far as we know, they live in Canada. So I think it would be plausible for them to know how to speak French, but I'm going to let it slide for Hickam cuz you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not Canadian for all we
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it was funny for sure.
Au coin.
A qua.
I think I
I
said that
think Ben
right.
posted about that after the episode. He's like, "Yeah, I tried to pronounce it a million different ways."
Oh my gosh. And even Lucas, he was like, oh crap, what is she doing here?
Yes.
And can we talk about that first scene with them?
Mhm.
I have questions.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions.
Of course, Jeanette brings up Elizabeth and the broken engagement. And I do like how Lucas came to Elizabeth's defense. He was like, don't bring her up. Don't bring
Mhm.
her into
For
this.
sure. Yeah.
Leave
And we all
Elizabeth.
know that like that's why Jeanette's there. Like not for any other reason. She saw Elizabeth in the paper and was like, "Okay, I'm getting out there to Hope Valley."
Yes.
Yeah.
And Lucas, after they talk about how she was an informant for the Treasury Department, he says, thank you for leaving me at the least opportune moment. I'm guessing he's
Mhm.
referring to season 9 with
Oh
Wyman.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because if you remember correctly, the last conversation they had was when Lucas was shouting over the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then we find out that Wyman Walden double crossed Lucas
Yeah.
all this time. So technically, she did leave him kind of in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. But that's not my question. She's there to bid on the resort, and she represents a group of high net worth investors in Cape Fullerton.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
Cough, cough, maybe Montague?
It could be. I mean, at this point, anyone could be associated with Montague. You just never know,
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
for sure.
And she says, I've gone straight just like you. I can't do her accent. I can't.
I mean, that was a good try for sure. I think she's not trustworthy in that. I don't think she's gone straight.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think that Lucas was ever not straight. I think she's just lumping him in with her
Mm-mm.
because, like I said, I think by association, maybe he got mixed up in
Yeah.
some things, but yeah.
And he tries to get her to leave, and she's like, oh, well, I've already got a room. And she holds up her room key. He's like,
Oh
oh
my
no.
gosh. Yeah. I will say she kind of gives me a little bit of a season 1 Rosemary vibe.
Yeah, I can see
You know, a
that.
little bit of that. Maybe a little bit more like, I guess, like 1920s Great Gatsby type,
Mm-hmm.
but she's definitely given me that like jealous ex,
I can see
like
that.
no boundaries type
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. And moving away from Jeanette for a second, the meeting with Maisy, that was hilarious. and awkward at the same time.
I will say, Maisy was spitting facts. I don't care what Lee and Hickam were saying. Maisy was speaking facts, and
Yeah,
everything she said was right. The only thing Edwin said in defense was, "We're building the resort for families." I'm like, dude, did you not think that maybe other people other than families will show up to your resort? I don't care what Edwin is telling Lee and Hickam, because Maisy is the one they should be listening to.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should give a warm welcome, or a warm, hearty welcome, to Samantha Ferris as Maisy. She already is doing a great job.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think she'll be in at least one more episode that I know of.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think we'll see her again for sure.
Yes. I love when Edwin suggests taking a break for the evening and Mike says the week and Lee says, how about a year?
That was funny. I will say though, Lee has done business negotiations before. He can handle it.
Yeah. Just his face. Yeah. He's like, how about a year? Yeah. I'm done with this.
Yeah, I think he was annoyed because I think Edwin may not have been like straight with them, and he felt underprepared. Yeah. And obviously Maisy came in guns blazing and they weren't ready for her. So of course Lee is going to be annoyed about that. So I can understand his frustration.
Yeah. And when Maisy gets there and, you know, she walks up to Mike and she says, afraid to take me on yourself, Michael? And he's like, no. As he looks at Lee.
Oh my gosh.
And another kind of comical scene, going back to Jeanette, Lee and Rosemary at home. Now, this was a sneak peek. Leland Coulter, I'm the screen siren in Hope Valley.
That was very funny. I think that's the closest that Rosemary has come to being jealous of someone for a very long time.
Since season 1, I think.
Yeah. Or season 2 with Molly.
Season 2. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Rosemary wants to talk to Elizabeth about Jeanette. And Lee's like, where are you going? Elizabeth is probably sleeping. And I know that Jack is sleeping.
Yeah.
She's like, when has that ever stopped me?
I mean, that is a fair argument, because even last season we saw that late night chat between Rosemary and Elizabeth, and it was like the only reason she went over was because she saw the light on, but that was a late night chat. So yeah,
which that was okay.
Done it before, for sure. Yeah.
Lucas and Jeanette at the Queen of Hearts. Now this is when Rosemary kind of walks in and interrupts. What did you think of that?
Rosemary walking in and interrupting. I thought that was kind of a turning point for a lot of people. They were trying to decide what they thought of Jeanette, and I think a lot of people, that was the moment where they were like, okay, I don't like this girl. She's bad news. I think that was kind of the moment when people were kind of like, okay, she's the villain here. So that's kind of was my big takeaway from that moment, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think it was necessary that Rosemary needed to do that, since Elizabeth and Lucas aren't together, but I can see why she did it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's kind of this weird in between area for Rosemary this season, where she's Elizabeth's friend. She knows that Elizabeth broke up with Lucas, and she also knows that Elizabeth is into Nathan in reality. So she's had a few moments this season where she's been kind of caught in this like kind of awkward situation where, oh, she'll be saying things that maybe in the context of Lucas and Elizabeth courting, it would make sense, but now that they're not courting, maybe it doesn't make complete sense. Or, it's just sometimes Rosemary gets caught in these awkward situations, I think, because of the situation.
I agree. And even the talk with Lucas and Jeanette before and after she gets there is interesting, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Lucas mentions that she shouldn't bother making a bid because of the kind of people her investors are. Like, that right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why this keeps happening to Lucas, but he keeps having to turn down bids for his resort. He's gonna be in a in a tight place because right now he's had 2 bids for the resort, and both of them he's turned down. Obviously, Montague, you want to turn that one down. Jeanette, I'm not so sure, because Jeanette, I feel like that could potentially be a bid that maybe they would take. But the reason Lucas is turning it down is not exactly for the reason that he doesn't trust them, but, well, I guess it is kind of. It's just, he doesn't know for sure if their intentions are bad, whereas Montague, he knows for sure that the intentions are bad.
Yeah. I do like when he says how he's changed and he's not like Jeanette anymore. And I believe that's because of being in Hope Valley for so long. Hope Valley has changed him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. I think we're looking at a different Lucas than we knew back in season 6. And maybe his evolution hasn't always been obvious at every stage, but definitely when you compare him to Jeanette in this episode, there's a stark contrast. So there's definitely been a huge change in him since then.
Yes. Yeah, he even says in his second to last scene with her, when they're walking out of the Queen of Hearts, he's not living that life anymore.
Yeah.
After she says, believe it or not, I still care about you. Because he wants to know why she's really there, and then he says that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's getting background checks on her investors.
Yes, I mean, that's valid. I'm glad he's at least considering it, because I think it wouldn't be a good look for the governor to turn down 2 investments based off of personal connections with the people making the bids.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of is in a position where he has to look into her bid. If not Montague's, he has to look into hers, or else no one is going to take him seriously. So I would say it's kind of necessary at this point.
And can we talk about the fact when she gets in the car and she drives, it's only like 100 feet, and then she stops. She gets out of the car, and Lucas is watching this whole thing, and he's like looking between Jeanette and where Elizabeth is, and then he realizes, oh crap. And
he's like, oh no.
He's like, no.
He's like, I thought we were in the clear, but I guess not.
And Jeanette literally walks up to Elizabeth and she introduces herself, and she's like, we have something in common. Like, mic drop right there.
Oh my gosh.
Although I kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. And honestly, you think about it, Jack was technically engaged too before he and Elizabeth were together. So it's not the biggest mic drop or bombshell that has been reveled on the show.
Not like the ones we talked about.
Were we talking about mic drop moments last week? Yeah, there you go. There's the mic drop moment.
Not like those.
Yeah,
it's
not like that. It's kind of there, but not quite. Yeah. What did you think of Elizabeth's reaction?
I loved it. She was totally not bothered at all.
Yeah. I will say I liked it, and I thought it was the perfect way to react, because you could see Jeanette was looking for any kind of ounce of jealousy, but there
She
was
was
none.
annoyed.
Elizabeth was just like, and then Jeanette's like, oh, you're not going to react the way I want you to, and just like leaves.
Yeah, Jeanette was annoyed that Elizabeth wasn't annoyed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will say, I kind of thought that Elizabeth let Lucas off a little bit easy for
with
not telling her
about the engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, because even if they're not in a relationship now, if things had changed differently, they would have been married at this point. And imagine you're married and then your husband's ex-fiance that you never knew existed shows up. Like, that's a sticky situation. So I think she let Lucas off really easy, especially compared to other times in the past with certain people in the town square. It's just it felt really easy, but it just shows that she's kind of over it, I guess. So
she's
way
totally
over it at this point.
over Lucas. Like way over him.
Yeah, so I think if she weren't over him, she would have been more upset, but she's pretty over it. So
yeah, I mean that was very clear.
For
she
sure.
still cares about him, but totally over him romantically.
Yeah.
And of course, Nathan and Allie see the interaction, and Allie's wheels are just turning. She's looking between Nathan and Elizabeth. She's like,
yeah. I think she knows there's still some things going on, and I think we're going to see more of that next week. Or should I say this week?
This week, yes.
Yeah.
I think we will. Yeah. But before we get into Nathan and Elizabeth and Allie and Jack, why don't we talk about Faith and Lily, the Canfields, the Coulters, and Mike and May?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Faith and Lily only had that one scene, really, or two. They were two very brief scenes, but they were really sweet.
They were honestly so precious. Like, I love them, and I feel like they're best in like those little micro moments, like those little moments, because you can really appreciate them. And I loved that moment where Faith, sends Lily off to
daycare with Jack.
Yeah, and then she's talking to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, for the first time, mentions the idea of being a single parent. And Faith is kind of taken aback. She's like, oh, I'm not a single parent. And I think it might be setting up the possibility that Faith may become a permanent single parent with Lily.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, I know I had my doubts last week, but this week, that little line in there makes me wonder. So
I thought
hoping for that.
Elizabeth's support was sweet, and then of course Lily with the fairy wings. It's so cute.
Yeah, that was super sweet.
Yes. And then the bunny ears before the egg hunt.
Faith's got to represent, right?
Yes. Auntie Faith, can we hunt together?
Yeah, so cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Canfields had a couple of nice scenes. We got the one with all four of them at the cafe, and Joseph is on the way to Jameson for a Bible class, and Minnie has made him lunch, I'm guessing. And Angela says, Mrs. Thornton says, every argument can be settled if people listen. And I thought that was a great quote.
I gotta say, I love this story for them. I think it's a great story.
The way they're setting it up.
And it's adding some layers of not just, being the town counselor, the town, pastor's wife. It's actually like something that might potentially cause some tension with their family. And I think that's going to be a good storyline for them.
I think it will.
For sure.
Yeah. And you can see the wheels turning in Cooper's head after Joseph leaves, after answering Cooper's question about if he's ever listened to his brother. And, Joseph says, can't really listen when he won't talk to me, or something along those lines.
Yeah. As soon as I saw Cooper's face in that scene, I was like, I know what you're about to do.
Yep.
I just knew it. And yeah, I'm here for it. I think
Yep.
it's an interesting turn of events.
I think the scene at the cafe, well, I am glad that Angela and Cooper are trying to help mend the relationship with Joseph and Jacob. I think I'm on Allie's side. Maybe not the best idea, but it's done with good intentions. So,
here's the thing. I have a thought. What
okay.
if I think you know what I'm going to say. What if seeing Cooper and Angela
Oh, wait, yes,
reach
I do
out?
know what
Yep. What if seeing Cooper and Angela reach out to their estranged uncle inspires Allie to reach out to her birth father or to meet her birth father?
See, we do have the same brain.
Yeah. See, that's why I knew you were going to know what I was talking about.
Yep. I had that exact same thought while I was watching
I
it the
think that's
second
where
time.
we're going. I definitely think that's where we're going for sure.
Yeah. And then we get the last scene with Angela and Cooper and Allie at the Mercantile, and Allie is taking over for Florence, and she calls about getting Jacob's address. And I thought that was nice of her to help.
For sure. Yeah. Like I do think it might backfire initially, but I think once Joseph and his brother are able to work things out, which may take a couple episodes, but I feel like once they're able to kind of work through those knots of the past, I think things are going to turn out for the best.
Yeah, I think they will too.
Can't say the same for Allie, but I do think that things are going to work out for the Canfields for sure.
Yes. And we know where things are going with Allie and her dad because of
Yeah.
Kevin.
And I'm almost glad that we're having those two parallel stories going on because there could always be the implication of, oh, you know, like everyone in your life is a nice person, like no one's going to hurt you, you know, like, but I'm glad they're balancing that out with Allie's situation, which we know is going to cause a lot of heartbreak for her. As opposed to the Canfields, who maybe it was for the best that this was done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mike and May, they only had 2 scenes in this episode. I thought they were good scenes, but okay. You know I love Mike and May. But the one thing that bothers me is it seems like they're progressing more off screen than on screen.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I feel like every scene we see of them, they're a little bit further, but there's no in between. We're like, where is this coming from? Like, what made you reach that point?
Yeah.
And, you know, this week they kissed. It was a great kiss.
It was sweet.
2 kisses. Yeah.
It was sweet, but it did kind of annoy me a little bit that Mike got a kiss before Nathan.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna lie. Of course, I was happy for Mike and May, but that was my first thought. I'm like, really? You're gonna give Hickam a kiss before you give Nathan a kiss? Come on. I was annoyed. I'm not gonna lie. I was annoyed.
I mean, I'm happy for them.
I'm so happy for them, and it was such a sweet scene, and I liked the kiss. It was great. I'm just a little bit annoyed. Little bit.
Yeah. And I did love the scene when May meets Maisy. That was hilarious.
That was funny, yeah. And I liked that all of the men, Lee, Edwin, and Hickam had all kind of like acted like Maisy was like this like tyrannical like mayor. And then when May meets her, she's like, oh no, she's great. Like I liked that May actually saw her for who she was as opposed to you know what she was looking to do as mayor.
Yeah, and Mike was like, no, she's not. And then, he puts the pieces together and he's like, Mom told you about May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and then Maisy says, you should really bring May home to meet Mother.
Yeah. I had thought that maybe we would get to see that and see Hickam and May meet Hickam's mom. But I do know that in Elizabeth Stewart's interview with Heart to Hearties that she mentioned that we're not actually going to meet Hickam's mom this year. But that could potentially be something for next year.
Yeah.
You never know.
Okay, so I guess that clears up the question of, is that Mike's mom in that behind the scenes video
Mm-hmm.
with dresses?
I think it's Maisy.
It's a different woman. It's an older woman.
Oh, interesting.
It's been in a lot of Hallmark stuff. She usually plays the mom or the grandma or...
Interesting. Okay.
I can't remember her name, but yeah, she's an older lady.
We'll have to keep an eye out for the casting list.
Yeah.
When the casting list for that episode comes out. So we shall see. Yeah.
And the Coulters, they only really had one scene together in this episode.
Like I've been saying for weeks, Lee is not making more time for his family running 2 businesses and helping with the resort. Look what's happening. They're not really getting to spend time together.
No.
I want people to know that me saying that and being a little bit hard on Lee is not me disliking the storyline. Yeah. In fact, I think it's a really good storyline if especially it's a movement towards character development, and that's something that he's going to have to learn from eventually. Like some failure, eventually he'll have to learn from it. I think that could be a great thing. Yeah. So I'm totally, me being hard on Lee is not me saying, oh, Lee's story is not good. That is totally not what I'm saying.
I know, yeah. The scene with Lee and Goldie before the egg hunt, when, he's talking about the ears he tried to get her to wear and she just wouldn't wear them. And then the moment when she finds the egg and brings it to Rosemary.
So cute, yeah.
Precious.
So cute.
Yeah. And Goldie's dress was so cute.
Oh, yeah.
All the kids' outfits for Easter were really cute.
Yeah, they went all out for sure.
Moving into Nathan, Allie, Elizabeth, and Jack. They had some really nice moments in this episode.
They did. I think their scenes in this episode were my favorite scenes of theirs so far. I think there was a good mix of kind of what was happening. We had some witty banter. We had some longing looks. We had some, subtext scenes.
The subtext was thick.
It was so thick. And then we had some straight talk of them just talking at the end of the day, which was great. And we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, nice mix of different kinds of scenes with them. You could really see the variety in the different things that they can do.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yeah. I loved the first scene when Elizabeth and Jack are walking to the saloon with the Coulters and they're talking about the Easter address, and Jack wants to listen to the speech. He's like, Mommy, can I go listen to Buddy speak? And she's like, no, because none of the other kids will be there. But she agrees to let him go with her to school since they're decorating the Easter eggs.
I have to say, when they mentioned, oh, little Jack's going to be going to school next year, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be next season. If we get a next season, he is going to be in school. That is insane to me. So exciting though.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see him at school with all the kids.
Yeah, I think that could be a really good storyline for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. He'll be 6, I think. Yeah, if I'm counting that right. Yeah. I think Opal was 6 when she came on.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. Little Opal.
Yeah.
And how she's grown up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we are not talking about Opal. We are talking about the Thorntons and the Grants. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the walk and talk in town after the speech
Mm-hmm.
and the teasing with each other. That was really cute.
Oh yeah. I loved that because it's such a them type of scene. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's teasing and she's kind of like, "Oh yeah, haha." And they're so like casual together.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like you tone it down a little bit and you have like this little moment of
Yeah.
some sparks in there, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
like when Elizabeth brings up Edwin in the bunny costume, and Nathan's like,
Yeah.
I love it. I can see it.
Yeah. I love how like Kevin when he's acting, he does this thing where he'll do things that are really unexpected and like they keep you on your toes, and he'll take like a regular script and it's just kind of like he'll treat it like it's just like, oh, I'm gonna add this little flair in here and do this little thing there. And I love when he adds these like little things that are like so unique
Mm-hmm.
to the character but also like totally unexpected. I love
Yeah.
when he does little things like that.
Yeah, me too. And I love when Elizabeth kind of, says, well, I'm sorry, but he's not going to do that. And he says, you're no fun. Excuse me, I am a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then he's like, I would like to thank you. Your constituents would like to thank you. The great town of Hope Valley thanks you. I know Edwin thanks.
That was a great line. That was so funny.
Yes. And then, he's like, school's that way. You're going the wrong way. And, then she tells Nathan that little Jack is going to school with her. And he says, lucky him. Subtext.
Oh,
Subtext.
oh yeah. Yes.
Like,
Love
I
it.
wish I was going with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know he wants to be with the pretty school teacher.
Yes. And that teasing really reminds me of when Jack was there. The
Okay,
teasing with the
yes.
two of them. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking of the scene. There's a scene where Jack and Elizabeth are walking together. It's filmed the exact same way, where they're side by side walking down the street and they're kind of going back and forth, and there's like some witty banter going on. I believe it's right after Elizabeth rented the row house for the first time, and she shows him the key. There's a sweet little scene like that. And it reminded me so, yeah.
That one. I think I brought that up recently in another episode.
Yeah. It's definitely possible, but it reminded me of that.
The snack in the stable scene.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It was after
I was
that.
like, this is, yeah, exactly. It totally brought me back to that, and I love that.
I love that scene. He's like, what? A snack in the stables? And she's like,
Jack. Jack. Yeah.
I also love the one from season 1 when they're working on the test for Beau. I guess
that's
working on the questions.
Great scene, yeah.
And I think it's at the end of the episode. I think it's like the last scene of the episode. And he's grading her test. And, she's like pushing him to tell her how she did. And she's getting really anxious and antsy. Like, just tell me how I did. And I think he says something like, you really didn't do that well. And then he gives her the test and she looks at it and it's like a perfect score or something. And she slaps.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's another really, really good scene. But you're right, it reminded me of that, and I forgot to bring that up, but watching it live, I immediately thought of Jack and Elizabeth.
Yeah. I thought the scene at school with Elizabeth and her students was great too, when they're all decorating the eggs and Jack says, "Is this what you do at school every day, Mom?" And she's like, "No."
I
And
wish, but no, yeah.
yeah. And then, of course, Allie offers to help Jack because Sarah and Talia are kind of arguing over something with decorating their eggs. And then she goes over to them and talks about compromise. And I thought that was a great moment, too.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of moments of the kids learning how to compromise on the show, but
Yeah.
I always like when they throw it in there.
Yes.
It's cute.
And then the scene with Toby and Elizabeth doing math with the eggs.
Mm-hmm. As they were both kind of discussing the egg and the fractions.
Mm-hmm.
I realized, why didn't she just bring out the pie like she did last time? I'm like, girl, you had the perfect fractions lesson ready to go. Should have used it.
Yeah, but that was a good scene.
It was, yeah.
I think one of my favorite moments in this episode, while it was brief, was when Elizabeth was walking Jack to daycare and she's asking him if he liked school, and he says, "It's fun, but..." And then, she's like, "But..." And then, "It's like you're everybody's mom. I may be everyone's teacher, but I am only your mom, and that is the most important thing I will ever be."
I thought that was very sweet. And I also think it's potentially, I think little Jack and Nathan have kind of a parallel story going on right now where Elizabeth is being everything to everybody right now. Elizabeth's being a teacher to all of the children. In Nathan's case, she's being Lucas's assistant, and she's Rosemary's friend, and she's being his friend and everybody's teacher, and she's very involved with everyone. And little Jack and Nathan don't really know exactly where they fit into her life compared to everyone else. And I think at some point in the future, and probably the near future, she's going to have to come face to face with telling them both where they fit in, I guess, So
yeah,
I think they're kind of on a parallel trajectory right now. And I think Elizabeth is going to, do something to kind of reassure them of their place in her life.
Yeah, the "I love yous" were sweet too. Like, melt my heart.
Yeah, it's so sweet. They have a lot of the parents saying "I love you" to the kids this year, and I love that.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
Nathan and Allie did it in episode 1 too.
Yes, they did. Yeah. We get the scene at the arch. I kind of wish they hadn't.
Yeah, I wish they hadn't spoiled it. But
Still a good scene.
Yeah. What I will say is, the first time I saw it, I was kind of annoyed by how much subtext was going on. But the more I kind of watched it, you kind of get a real appreciation for, I guess, Erin's acting in that scene. Because the whole episode, Elizabeth has been happy. Nothing's gotten to her, not even Jeanette. She's been very like upbeat and like busy and very very like happy go lucky. But in that moment when Nathan said to her, I think if somebody wants something bad enough, they'll figure it out. You can just see her face. She knows exactly what he's talking about. And instead of that happy go lucky face that she's had on for the rest of the time, you just see like this, like she has like this grave understanding. And then when he talks about figuring it out, you see this panic come over her face, like almost akin to when she had that panic attack when she thought he had been shot. It was a really good little piece of acting there, and it's a stark contrast to everything else in the episode. And that tells me that I think Elizabeth is still afraid And maybe that's why her and Nathan haven't been able to really have any super deep conversations without subtext so far. It's
Yeah.
because she's guarding her heart. She's not open to that yet. But I think that will come eventually.
Yeah. And I think it will come soon.
Sooner rather than later, for sure.
Yes. And of course, we got the fall and the catch and the lip staring and the looks and the interrupting from Allie. Hi, Allie. And talking in sync. I love when they look at each other and they're like, soon. At the same time.
Yes. That was very, very funny.
Yes. And then, that look after Allie leaves. Like, they're totally not sorry for what just happened.
Oh, no, of course not. Why would they be? Neither one of them are, and they're not trying to hide it.
Nope. And Allie is picking up on it. She's like,
yeah,
okay.
I think she knows something's up for sure.
Yes. And then Elizabeth watching Nathan with Jack.
That was sweet.
Yes. Another favorite moment from this episode.
I love how Nathan's so natural as a dad because he's already a dad. And, he's just like, he's walking around with little Jack.
Yeah.
And he's not trying too hard. He's just like, oh yeah, that's just what you do. So I love how natural that scene was. I was afraid when we saw the promos that they were going to try and like make it some kind of like thing, but it was so natural and I loved that.
Yeah, me too. We get Elizabeth and Rosemary's walk in town and they're talking about Jeanette, and Elizabeth is clearly confused about why Lucas didn't tell her.
Yeah. Rosemary mentions that Lucas sees her as being on a pedestal.
And
Elizabeth says, I don't want to be on a pedestal. I want to keep my feet on the ground. Ironic that we have that imagery of her falling off the little step stool that she had and into Nathan's arms. It kind of shows like her falling off maybe that pedestal. And I think it's very interesting that we see Lucas's ex in this episode, in the same episode that we hear Elizabeth talking about him putting her on a pedestal. I do think that she's right about that, but what I think the reasoning behind it might be is because Jeanette was not obviously a good person, but Elizabeth is kind of, like, everything a guy wants. She's a good person. So I think Lucas kind of maybe compared her to Jeanette and was like, oh, Elizabeth's like here, whereas Jeanette was like, here, I'm going to put Elizabeth on a pedestal. So I could see where that argument could be made. And another thing I will say is I don't think Nathan puts her on a pedestal in the same way. He will call her out when she's wrong, just like she'll call him out when he's wrong. They call each other out, but he certainly doesn't put her on a pedestal.
No.
He has no problem telling her how it is.
Yeah. And one thing I loved about the scene when she falls and he catches her is how he didn't try to stop her from doing what she wanted, trying to get the egg, but he was there anyway.
He was there to catch her.
Yes.
And also, like, they disagreed in that scene about where the egg should go. And in the end, he ended up putting it back up there. So even though, he didn't back down, he put the egg back up there. So it kind of signifies, oh yeah, maybe they disagree, but at least he is, he has his own convictions, which is I think good. And he's not putting her on a pedestal to the point where he's just like, oh yeah, Elizabeth, do whatever you want. Not that Lucas did that, but he definitely doesn't put her on a pedestal for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's going to make their relationship great.
For sure. I agree. Yeah.
They
I think
challenge
they're
each
able
other.
to, they're able to be real with each other. They're able to have some really hard conversations, but their relationship is never completely at risk because of those conversations. Even if they've had some really tough ones in the past, they always overcome it. I mean, look where they are now. They've overcome everything. I just can't see anything that could possibly come between them that could end their relationship, any kind of relationship they have. It's just not possible at this point.
No.
So yeah, they're very real. They're very, I would say they're very much equals, maybe even more so than Jack and Elizabeth were in a way, because Jack was always like a hero, and he was such a huge figure in the story, but also like he's always just doing all these huge things. Whereas I feel like Nathan and Elizabeth are much more equals in that they're both imperfect. They've both had lessons that they've learned, and they both have flaws that they need to overcome. So I think they're more equals even than Jack and Elizabeth were, and I think that's going to be what makes them interesting as a couple.
Yeah, I think so too. My favorite scene in the episode, I think I have to say, the last one with them at her row house.
Yeah. As soon as I heard the knock on the door, I was like, please let it be Nathan. And then she opens the door and it's Nathan. I was so happy, and I was like, this is definitely going to be my favorite scene of the night, of course.
Yes.
And it was. Yes.
Yeah. I knew it was either going to be Nathan or Rosemary, but I was leaning towards Nathan.
Yeah. I was like, maybe Rosemary to talk about Jeanette some more, but hopefully Nathan. And then it was Nathan. So I was happy about that.
The subtext was thick in this scene.
Just like the prior scene. But this time, instead of answering negatively, Elizabeth tells Nathan that sometimes a chocolate egg is worth the risk.
Yeah. And I love how it was flipped. Like the first time she said maybe it's not worth the risk, but then she changes it to sometimes a chocolate egg is worth the risk. Equals Nathan is worth the risk.
Yeah, because the first time she was scared and we saw that look of panic on her face, and she said, no, it's not worth the risk. Obviously, we know she's not talking about the egg here, but, this time she is, saying that, yes, it is worth the risk.
Yes. And this is not my theory, but I did see somebody mention somewhere, or it might have been on Instagram, I can't remember for sure, when Nathan says, I thought it best to go back to the person who risked life and limb for it. Somebody commented what if that's foreshadowing? Because we know there's a big Mountie event. What if Elizabeth risks her life for Nathan?
Oh, I mean, I would not be opposed. I think that could be so interesting. It kind of flipped the roles a little bit, because Elizabeth's the one who's been afraid of something happening to him, and maybe she takes it into her own hands to protect him, which she hasn't really had the opportunity to do that with Jack or with Nathan in any case. I think that could be so interesting. I hope that that's true. I don't know if it is, but I do hope so.
Yeah, that would be a great storyline, I think. And that's not to say that they won't be together as a couple at that point. I think they will. But, I mean, it still could be possible that she risks her life for him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think I like that theory a lot. I don't know if it's going to come true.
I don't either.
But I would love for it to come true. And I think
too.
that would be so interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of subtext, there is another area of subtext in this scene that is also kind of a callback, potentially foreshadowing. At the end of the scene, Nathan tells Elizabeth, I kind of felt bad for Lucas, that he got called out in public like that. My mind immediately went to that time Nathan and Elizabeth were in the public square,
I didn't even
and
think about that.
they had this this big fight about Fort
Fort
Clay,
Clay.
where Nathan's secret of years came out in public, and she reacted so strongly. But I'm sure everyone else around her heard the whole thing, and so Nathan's whole secret was not just to Elizabeth, but to everybody. So when he says that about Lucas and says, "Oh, I felt bad for Lucas," it's because he knows exactly how that feels. And it almost makes me think maybe there's some kind of discussion about what happened that day. Maybe there's going to be some kind of discussion about when that happened and how they are able to move forward with that after that big blow up in the middle of the town.
I think that it's possible. I think it's very possible.
Yeah. I don't think that line was just a throwaway line.
Yeah.
I think something's coming with that for sure.
Yes, I do too. And can we just talk really briefly about when Nathan leaves and she holds the egg?
Yeah. It's funny, and it kind of points towards my theory of earlier, but every time Elizabeth shows any kind of like excitement or, you know, enthusiasm or attraction to Nathan, it's always when nobody else is looking or she thinks nobody else is looking. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it's because she's still scared to actually open up about that.
Yeah.
And that's why in that little moment after she closes the door, she kind of holds on to the egg and kind of like smiles to herself. She wouldn't do that when he was at the door. But as soon as the door is shut, she's kind of allowing herself to like feel what she was feeling. And I think it's interesting that a lot of those moments have happened in private for her or when no one's looking. And I think we're going to see more and more of them happen when he's looking or when other people are looking.
Yeah. And I got to mention the hand touch. I could feel the sparks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes. I love that moment, of course.
And we got to mention before we talk a little bit about this week, the last scene with Lucas looking at the bed from Jeanette and finding the photo of the two of them.
Yeah. I don't know if that's technically them leaving the door open for Jeanette to return. I think it could possibly be not a romantic interest, obviously, but I think it could potentially be leaving the door open for her to make a return at some point. Especially since he technically didn't turn down her bid yet. But did you notice in that photo, he's wearing very similar outfit to when he was about to ride out of town in season 6 when he thought she was in trouble with his special hat?
Yes, I did. The outfit did look familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. He looked, literally, it looked like the same outfit that they picked. So it's almost like it's an interesting visual, like even in hindsight, of when Jeanette's in danger and he has to ride out of town. It's almost like he's putting on a different persona when he puts on the hat. And we never see him wear that hat ever again. But that one time when he's about to leave town and he's about to go get embroiled in that old life that he used to be a part of, he puts on the hat and, you know, rides out of town.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And the photo gave me Bonnie and Clyde vibes.
Me too. Yeah, honestly, yeah. Not that Lucas is a criminal or crook, but it did give me kind of like those that like partners in crime, like
just that.
living the high life type thing. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think that is the end of episode 4. Do we want to chat about episode 5?
Sure. So episode 5
Big one.
Great. I'm so excited. It's time. It's time.
Yes, I think it's happening. I think it is happening.
It looks like we're about to get some really big emotions, and I'm very excited for that. I know we seem to be following a similar pattern to season 10 in that the first 4 episodes are kind of, you know, a little bit insignificant towards the overarching plot. They're kind of slow. But then episode 5 is kind of where things start to, you know, get a little more emotionally heavy. And I think that's where we're heading now. Last year in episode 5, it was when Lucas and Elizabeth were arguing
about
the house on the hill. That was a big episode for them. And it was also the episode where Nathan comes home and Elizabeth offers him the camping trip. A lot of really great scenes in episode 5. So I think this episode 5 is going to follow suit and have a lot of really great scenes. Maybe more emotional than season 10's episode 5. We shall see.
I think it's going to be good. I mean, we've got the scene, "What am I to you?" when he confronts her.
That's a big one. He's asking the golden question that, you know, we've been wondering for years, and now she's going to be forced to face it.
Yes. I don't think she'll necessarily answer him in that scene, maybe. I think that they're probably going to get interrupted in that scene, and she's not going to have a chance to answer. And why don't we just go ahead and bring up that comment I sent you earlier?
Yeah. So there's a rumor, or a comment, should I say, floating around out there that there was a video that Hallmark accidentally released of Nathan riding alone in the woods looking upset, and then the scene cuts to Elizabeth asking Allie where Nathan is, and Allie telling Elizabeth that he went off to go think somewhere, and then showing Elizabeth running after Nathan, you know, calling after Nathan basically in the woods. So if that's true, this is going to be a dang good episode. Like, so good.
I think it's happening. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to keep my expectations low, but I think it's happening.
I really hope it is. Obviously, I'm going to keep my expectations low just because, you know, this is When Calls the Heart after all. You gotta, we're not, it's not like Heartland or, you know, a massive period drama. You just gotta keep it When Calls the Heart level, obviously.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of people hoping that we'll get a cabin scene 2.0. I've seen some people saying we might see them at the I Love You log, which I'm tending to believe that's more likely. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Cabin scene would be fun, obviously, but
yeah, I feel like it's more likely. I Love You log. And
might still be too early for the cabin scene.
Maybe. But that
might come later. That might come later for the big explosion moment that we all know is coming.
Yeah. That comment was on the Kevin McGarry and Suspenders Unbuttoned Facebook group. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully that's true, because that's going to be great if it is true.
So Hallmark, I think it was yesterday, their caption on their post, I guess with the promo for this week or the preview, says, "The past doesn't always rest. Find out how it comes back to the surface for Lucas, Elizabeth, and Nathan in Sunday's all-new episode of When Calls the Heart." So I think the fear talk is coming this week.
I think so too. Maybe also some explanation about why Elizabeth broke things off originally.
I think that's part of what they mean by that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if it's for all three of them, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of conversations involved. I just hope they give it enough time, like screen time, for it all to kind of be like laid out, you know?
Yeah. I feel like they will.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, the preview seemed like it was pretty Nathan and Elizabeth driven.
Yeah. And the last episode was very Lucas driven. So I could see them kind of switching gears a little bit and
And we do
Mm-hmm.
have those promos that have come out prematurely on the porch and on Newton. I'm so
On
excited
the
to see
horse,
those.
yeah. Both of those, I can't even pick which one I'm more excited for because they're both like really
Yeah.
things I've wanted to see for Nathan and Elizabeth, but hadn't really dared to hope for. And now it's actually happening. Like them just sitting on the porch together and just like living life is so amazing to me. And then riding the same horse, like, oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. I totally
So
think
much
they're
yes.
together in both of those.
Oh yeah.
There's no way that they're not, especially the porch scene. She would not be doing that if they were
Oh
not
yeah.
together.
For sure.
And going to Elizabeth Stewart's interview, I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but just a couple of points. She did say about Jeanette that you don't bring a character like that on for just one episode. So,
I'm glad she said that because I was worried this was going to be a one-time thing. And I was like, you can't just have Jeanette on for one episode and that be that. So I'm glad
yeah.
There's potential for her to come back for sure.
Yes, me too. And then about Nathan and Elizabeth, no, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I do remember her saying that there would probably be some more interruptions, but it won't last much longer. And even if
Thank
there
goodness.
are, I still think that they're going to be together at the end of this week's episode.
I think so too. Yeah. And thank goodness if we're almost at the end of the interruptions because they are getting a little bit repetitive and annoying at this point because they can't really make any progress if they're right about to make some progress and then someone interrupts. So they're going to have some kind of like straightforward conversation somewhere where they can't have interruptions, maybe the cabin or the woods, either one. But yeah. So I think that's good.
Yeah, everything from episode 6 on has them looking very cozy and very much together. So
yes, for sure.
Yeah,
they're doing a lot of things together. They're looking very cozy together. They're working together for a lot of things. So yeah, I see that could potentially be true.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, we haven't gotten the book hand touch scene. We haven't gotten the great scene.
We haven't got a lot of scenes actually. So yeah.
I'm excited.
Yes, it's gonna be great.
Yes, I think it will too. And those are the only things I can remember so far from Elizabeth's interview because I haven't watched all of it yet. But
yeah, I will drop this one tidbit that I heard her say, and it was this: that we still have not seen the person who shot Lucas yet this season. So that tells you that it's not Montague and it's not Jeanette because we've seen both of them. And it's not Edwin either. So those 3 people, you can count them out.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that it was actually Pike who shot him. But I think Pike was working for somebody.
Okay, I have seen a theory going around. Now, I don't think Pike is this guy, but I have seen a theory going around. It was posted on the Facebook group. It was with a picture, a screenshot of the clip from the preview for this week with Bill, Rosemary, Nathan, and Lucas. When it cuts to the guy with the hat. And somebody brought up, what if it is the one that was in season 10 at the land when Elizabeth rode by and she's like, you need to move along or something.
It could be.
Like, it's not safe for you here or something. I don't have the exact line, but
that definitely could be true. I've also seen a theory, and this one's interesting, that if you look at the hat that the guy is wearing, it's pretty much the same hat that Amos Dixon was wearing
That's right.
in season 6. So it could be Amos Dixon as well, which I think would be the best case scenario because that is interesting. Like, so interesting. That opens a whole can of worms. And that also invites an opportunity for Jeanette to redeem herself, possibly.
Yes, possibly. I kind of hope she does.
Yeah, she got a long way to go, but yeah.
Yes. I think this week will be a great episode.
Mm-hmm.
And the turning point, I think for Nathan
and
Elizabeth.
Yeah. So anyone listening, don't expect this to be a conclusion by any means, but do expect some good emotional scenes from this episode. So I think that's what we're in for. So yeah.
Yes. Just stay positive. I think we're at the end of the misunderstandings. I mean, the synopsis clearly says they clear up the misunderstanding.
Yes. So I think we're there. We're reaching the turning point, as you mentioned earlier. So
yes,
it's all up from here. So
yes, it's all up from here. Well, I think that wraps up episode 4 in our little chat about 5. This is always so much fun, Theresa. I can't wait for next week.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yes, it will. All right, Hearties. I think that wraps up our review of A Wind Calls the Heart, Season 11, Episode 4, Along Came a Spider. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like this video and share your thoughts on the episode and any predictions you have for the rest of the season in the comments. If you want to stay up to date on all of our reviews for the rest of the season, you can subscribe to this channel and make sure to turn on the bell so you are alerted when new episodes come. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world, and we will see you next week. We love y'all. Bye.
Bye.